Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody back. We're returning from our closed session. Today's January 28th is our special board meeting this evening. And we are going to move on to item number, item number 5.2, which is an action item. This meeting is recorded for live streaming and archiving on the district YouTube channel linked here for your convenience. Also, for tonight's public hearing, public comments may be submitted via the Google link in item number 12. Thank you. Okay, so we want to approve the agenda. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Do I have second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Item number 7, the Pledge of Allegiance. We don't want to forget that. So how about Cece? Would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Sure.
Thank you.
Please stand. Ready again. I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I'm going to remind everybody to mute yourselves unless you're speaking. Thank you for that. Now, number 8 is comments from members of the public. And before we get into this, I just want to share with our audience that we are going to be changing things up a little bit at our next meeting on February 4th. We do get a lot of letters, and we want to give everybody an opportunity to speak to their letters. And so we're working on creating, we're not exactly sure how it's going to work, but there's going to probably be a call-in number where you are able to call in and read your own letter. And just keep in mind, they're 3 minutes long, and it'll give everybody an opportunity to share what's on their mind. So I just want to let everybody know that in advance. Public comment. Members of the public may submit comments on the agenda and on any item within the jurisdiction of the school district in the following manner for meetings during a shelter-in-place executive order via Google form on this link. It's listed on the agenda that will be open to the public from 6 to 7 on the day of the meeting. The governing board allows speakers to speak at regular meetings on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. By law, no action may be taken on any item raised during the public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. So I hear that we have one letter this evening to be read, and I think Gethsemane, Dr. Moss, you're going to do that for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. And so we have a letter from Amy Cerna, and it reads, "This evening I am writing to the board, not with any objection to the possibility of safely allowing sports to resume, but in disbelief and frustration that despite a global pandemic and our community's tragic losses, both recent and past, the district has still failed to support the dire need for social, emotional support and learning. We are living in a time that has negatively impacted every student in some way, a time we normally seek human connection, friends, family, church, community resources, a time in which every day life changes at the pace too fast to maintain or navigate, uncertainties that are too big to process, and a future that has often looked too dark and scary for us adults or to even fathom. Yet we continue with false assumption that kids are resilient. Kids are not resilient. Resilience is a skill. Skills are taught. Skills are learned. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recently asked young adults if they had thought about killing themselves in the past 30 days. 1 in 4 said they had. 1 in 4. In Ohio, suicide now the leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 14, and the second leading cause for death for young adults ages 15 to 34. This summer, Oregon's suicide rate had already surpassed the previous year's total. Our children, our students are not okay. Whether we see the effects now or 5 years from now, their lives here forever have been changed. We have to do right now. What we do right now will decide whether those effects are negative or positive. Parents cannot and should not have to do this alone. BUSD has the resources and curriculum to support the social emotional needs of all students. The high school and the middle school have the amazing sources of strengths curriculum, also available at the elementary school level. But it is my understanding that the district purchased the second step curriculum, which is great too. So why aren't these resources being implemented at any of the school sites at a time when it's needed the most? And what steps will the district be taking, not what they have done in the past, to utilize the SEL resources that have been purchased? What training has the district required of the teachers and staff to aid in the social and emotional support of students that they're in contact with every day? Does the district have any implementation plans in regards to SEL? Mental health is a tough topic, yes, but the stigma attached is ridiculous and causing people to feel broken and alone, when in fact the majority of people have felt the exact same way at some point in their life. We need our youth to know and believe that they are not alone. I will close with a statement I heard during Biden's inauguration that made me think of our district's administration, with the hope that they too are listening, and more importantly, we're inspired. Lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. Thank you. And that was from Miss Amy Cerna. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Cerna. Okay, moving on to number 9, the consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be pulled and discussed. Approval of a personnel action list. Consent item. Is there anything here that we need to discuss with Kush? Nothing? Okay, so then we move on to item number 10, non-consent action items. Consideration and approval of the BHS athletics to yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we need to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Sorry.
Diane,
Do I have a second?
I will. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, seeing none, the motion carries. Item 10.1, non-consent action item. Consideration and approval of BHS athletics to follow the new proposal and schedule provided by the North Coast section. And we have Dr. Gill is going to be sharing this information with us. At least that's what's on my agenda.
That's correct.
Okay.
So good
Dr.
evening,
Gill.
Madam President and trustees, Dr. Young, community members. So I am going to be introducing Ms. Kleinschmidt, principal of Benicia High School, in a minute. But I just want to share with you that this is an item, similar item Ms. Kleinschmidt has shared with us a couple of months ago. It was approved, the sports were approved. Unfortunately, because of the changes in number of cases and other reasons, the sports did not start at that time. And so she's bringing this item back for your consideration again. So Ms. Kleinschmidt, go ahead.
Good evening, Madam President and trustees. Thank you for having me back. I hope to provide you with an update from the last time I was with you, which was November 5th. Quite a lot has happened since that time, and our plan for sports has changed drastically and very quickly. We've continued to have meetings almost every week, sometimes multiple meetings a week, as things have changed with our state and our county health guidelines, as well as CIF and North Coast section guidelines. So I look forward to providing you with an update and request for your approval that we can follow these the new plan. I believe that there's a presentation that I have to share with you. Georgina, would you like me to share my screen, or do you have that to share? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Is everyone able to see that?
Yes, Beth.
Presentation? Okay, great. Thank
A
you.
little moment of terror whether or not that's going to show up. There it
Yes,
is.
no matter how many times we do this, that seems
We
to
can all
happen.
we can all see it.
Great. Well, I come to you here at the end of January, just a few days left, and the update on sports for the remainder of the school year. Several important updates. First is a change from what I described to you last time as a 2 seasons of sports. Normally we have 3 seasons, fall, winter, and spring. That was changed initially to 2 seasons because everything was postponed and pushed back. Then we went into another shelter at home, a prolonged shelter at home. And so North Coast Section has put out a new plan, which actually changes the sports to align with the color of tier that we're in, based on the level of contact and safety. So I'll show you on the next slide, but there are certain sports aligned with the purple tier, red tier, orange, and yellow, based on where we are as a county. February 1st date was set as the hopeful starting date. That was then changed a few times. It got pushed back to February 2nd because of the shelter at home. And then that was recently rescinded. And so now we're looking at a possible February 1st date again. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. For safety, the safety guidelines that I provided to you previously are all still in place. One of the main exceptions, though, to that is face masks. Previously, the guidelines required face masks indoors and outdoors, except for with heavy physical exertion. They've actually changed that, and now face masks are to be worn at all times, even during heavy exertion. So, for example, if a student is doing sprints during a track, they would wear their face mask that entire time to improve safety. And then I believe this is the same as before, but I definitely want to stress that it's one sport. So students are in one cohort. They can only participate in one sport at a time. Where that might come into play is if a student participates in a sport that happens during the purple tier, and then if we were able to get to one of the other tiers, red or orange, that student might have the opportunity to participate in a second sport. So this was provided by North Coast Section. I've crossed out the sports that we do not provide at Benicia High School, just so that you're not having to look at those. The purple tier is where we stand now and where we hope to start as of next week. We would use next week as a buffer to have time for hiring coaches, training coaches, communicating with families, holding an athlete and family information event, getting everyone registered, really making sure we have all of the facilities, the safety planned and scheduled as needed. So cross country, golf, swimming, we don't have diving at Benicia High School, tennis, and then track and field. And so all of our athletic directors and principals within the Diablo Athletic League have been working tirelessly to create schedules for these sports. Because of all of these changes, there have also been alterations to the length of the schedules, the number of weeks that practices or competitions might happen. And so for these sports, it would likely be anywhere from 6 weeks to 8 weeks, a maximum of 10. And what's hard right now is to really know what those start and end dates are, because we know things will continue to change. And so while we look at a hopeful start date down the road for moving into the red tier and hopefully a start of those red tier sports, we don't know yet when that might happen. And so we actually had a meeting this morning and set a target date as March 1st. If we're in the red tier by that time, we would hope to begin those red tier sports of baseball and softball around March 1st. But we realize we have to be pretty flexible in those dates based on how things are changing. A few other items I think are important to point out and for us to keep in mind. The first, of course, is gender equity. And so all of our scheduling and work that we're doing around this is with that lens that leagues must provide an equal number of opportunities for student athletes in the same sport. We look at that with the length of the seasons. For example, girls tennis and boys tennis, they would need to be the same length of season, same opportunity for competition. And then also that we recognize that things might fluctuate. We might move into the red at some point, possibly move back out, moving back to purple. And so that, as a league, we continue to meet regularly, be flexible, and have possible changes to that should we regress. And that throughout, we're looking to our county health department, our state health department for that continued guidance. And then, unfortunately, even if we were to move to the orange tier and be able to start football, there is a deadline of April 17th. And so even if we are able to start football, that is the latest date that we would be able to have any sort of football practice or season happening in order to be ready for the August date for next year. And those are in the bylaws in terms of safety for our student athletes. CIF has put out really some great guidelines and some tools that we can use with our coaches, with our student athletes. So this is just two samples that I have for you from Purple Sports. The first being golf, the second being cross country. But for every single sport, based on what tier it is in, we have this available to help us make decisions as administrators based on our facilities, for our coaches. And so we will be using these as we do all of the training with our coaches, and then also informational sessions with our student athletes and their families. It has general guidelines, event modifications, should we be able to do that. Everything from water bottles and hydration and so forth. We will not be having any sort of playoffs, championships, things like that. The focus really is just to get as many student athletes participating at some level as possible. And so we would rather have the regular competition season than focus on playoffs or things like that. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I'm excited to bring this proposal back to you so that you can see where we are with sports, with the hope that we can get started. And we request your approval so that we can follow this updated guideline for athletics, these new season of sports breakdown, and then of course, still keeping in mind that we're following all state and county health guidelines as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Kleinschmidt. I appreciate you bringing this back to us. It's exciting to even think that this is possible. So I see that light at the end of the tunnel. I'll say that a lot of times in the next month, I think. This is exciting. Does anybody have any questions regarding the sports program that Mrs. Kleinschmidt's discussed with us here? No? Nobody? Okay, then, no questions. You're off the hook. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and it's not a roll call vote. It's not a roll call vote. Okay, so do I have a motion to go ahead and consider starting and approving the BHS athletics to follow the new proposal and schedule?
I move that we approve the new system of rules schedule that Ms. Kleinschmidt showed us.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Sounds good. What? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, hearing none, the motion carries. Congratulations, Brianna.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for all your hard work and sticking through this. And we're glad that the kids are going to be able to start doing some of their workouts. It'll be great.
As well. Thank you very much for your support.
You're very welcome. And with that, we are at the end of our meeting. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Remember, letters will be read by yourselves next time. And we've got some good stuff coming up. So thank you again. Have a good night, everybody. I'm going to close our meeting out. Here's my shell.
Can we make a request before you close out the meeting, Mrs. Zeta? I'd like to bring the possibility of small groups back for the next board meeting now that we're back in the purple, because that is something that we can do. And having sat on the curriculum meeting this past week, the fact that less students are as successful as we would hope they would be with our grades not where they need to go, I would like to talk about the possibility of small groups. So taking one more step to coming back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Furci. I will put it out there. I didn't realize that we could add something at the last minute that's not on the agenda.
We can't do that tonight. I'm asking for the next agenda.
The next agenda, if we can put that onto the next agenda so we can discuss it on the 4th. Yes, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. With that being said, I close the meeting, the Benicia Unified School District's school board. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.